ladies and gentlemen, the world's largest COVID vaccination drive that kick-started in January this year in India has come under the scrutiny of the Supreme Court. The Modi government aims to vaccinate all adults by the end of 2021, but the Supreme Court has raised several questions over India's vaccination policy. In fact, it called the vaccination policy in places irrational as well as arbitrary. In fact, it even described certain aspects of the policy which really have left a lot to be desired. Take a look at what the Supreme Court said today. The Supreme Court firstly questioned why private hospitals were getting the same quota as states. The harshest criticism was reserved for paid vaccinations of the 18 to 44 age group. The top court also felt strange as to why 35,000 crores allocated for vaccination haven't been used as yet. It also questioned as to why the centre claimed that all states should be vaccinating for free. The prima facie observations came as the boost to growing demands of free and universal vaccination, which started with Odisha Chief Minister Navin Patnaik today writing to all chief ministers calling for a consensus over centralized procurement as states struggle to bridge the supply-demand gap. It is time for India to unite and join hands to get jabbed because there is no safety from this virus but to make vaccination our priority. And that's why here on Times Now, we are starting Mission Vaccination as a major campaign because every Indian deserves to be vaccinated and soon. So the legitimate question on the news are tonight. Will the Union of India unite to vaccinate India? That's the question and the debate. Coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 2 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight is Gaurav Bhatia, BJP spokesperson, Riju Datta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Ashutosh, political analyst, also Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, Shehzad Poonawala, lawyer. But my first question goes to Suhail Seth. Suhail Seth, I want to ask you, was this a much-needed wake-up call from the Supreme Court coming at a time when Indians are running around absolutely confused on what the vaccination policy is? Officially, 18 to 44 is the age group which is open for vaccination, but try on the covishield app and you'll never get an appointment. Camps were being set up in different parts of the country, in different parts of Delhi as well. And suddenly those camps have been moved away and you just can't get those appointments. Do you think the price differentiation, do you think the fact that this 18 to 44 availability issue has marred the vaccination drive in India?
I think, Navika, as you rightly said, and I'm glad that Times Now is taking mission vaccination so seriously, we are not safe until the last person is safe. 4 things have gone wrong. And I won't blame Mr. Modi or the states. You know, I think it's time we stop blaming people and actually look for solutions. But what went wrong was simply planning and process. We knew that we have a 1.3 billion population. It's not something that we didn't know. We also knew that we had to vaccinate people. 3 things went wrong. Number 1, we didn't indent for enough vaccines. Number 2, our policy of announcing vaccinations when vaccines weren't available was the worst thing any government can do, whether state or central. Number 3, as Navin Patnaik rightly said, across the world, it's the central government that buys because, you know, they have more heft in buying capabilities because they're buying in bulk. But I'm not here to blame someone. I think even now there is time for reparation, there is time to repair. What should we be doing? The central government should be buying vaccines. There shouldn't be this ridiculous quota nonsense. This quota nonsense has created havoc. You know, I'll tell you, Navika, state governments have been told to procure vaccines. When they go to Bharat Biotech and Serum, they're told by Serum and Bharat Biotech that please go to the central government, because central government says we will decide the quotas. The problem with the central government is it thinks bureaucrats will solve this problem. They won't. Bureaucrats in India have a problem for every solution. Let's remember that. The other problem is, as you rightly said, look at what we've done with vaccination communication. We had irresponsible politicians like Rahul Gandhi and Akhilesh Yadav who deemed it a BJP vaccine, a this vaccine, a that vaccine, and created a vaccine hesitancy. Vaccine hesitancy led to wastage of dosage, the dosage which would be life-saving. Now we have a situation where states want control and the central government decides on the quotas. I mean, it's a marriage that is made in hell. You can't have a situation like that. To my mind, Naveen Patnaik's letter is actually a letter of statesmanship. He has talked like a statesman. The only way forward is you have to make the central government responsible. You have to make them accountable. They need to buy the vaccines. Then they need to distribute it by demographic quotas. You and I both know what the demographics of Maharashtra are vis-a-vis Chhattisgarh. That's how the distribution has to happen. You asked a very pertinent question. Why are private companies, private hospitals indenting for these vaccines and paying for them? I personally had tweeted many months ago, Navika, for those of us who can afford, we should not take the free vaccine. Because to my mind, it's a crime. Number two, the people who can't afford and where companies are sponsoring their vaccines, including Bennett and Coleman, those companies should be encouraged. But it can't be at the cost of vaccinating every Indian. Just because an Indian doesn't work for
Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, right here on Times Now, we have raised questions about the vaccination policy. The fact that you don't have supplies, yet you open up. You say there was pressure and demand from the states. Fair point. Okay, there was. But how many issues of the states have you listened to in the past, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia? Did you listen to them when you went ahead with demo? Did you listen to them when there are GST outstanding spending for the states? You didn't. You did what you thought was right. In this case, how can you pass the bucks on to states? Question number one. And question number two. You know, when you make the system open and the pricing, which is variable, what are you doing? 45 plus people get it free. Now, many people who can afford to pay go on the COVID app and get an appointment. It happened for my son. We get an appointment in a government school where the vaccination is free. Now, I want to pay for it, but my son is getting it free. But my help's son not getting an appointment, and if he wants it in a private institution, has to pay 1,200, 1,500 bucks. So somewhere something is quite wrong, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. Did it require the Supreme Court to wake up the government?
So, Navika, let me first talk about some legal things which are important because we are discussing the proceeding of the Supreme Court. And then I will endeavor to answer your question as well. The order that you're discussing today is not a final judgment. It does not in any way cast aspersions on the efficiency of the government. Rather, the affidavit itself, which was submitted by the central government, says, and this is a very important line, even for the citizens and the viewers who are watching your program, the vaccination drive will be completed by the end of December 2021. So this is placed on record. And I think that itself is a very important, fact placed by the government. Second, nobody can take away from the fact that even though we have a population size of 135 crores, 22 crore Indians have been given vaccination, 1 dose or 2 doses. And this has been done in a manner which is second fastest in the world. Third, a bigger assurance comes from ICMR and the central government that after augmenting the production as well as procuring vaccination from other countries, 30 lakh vials of Sputnik also arrived in India yesterday. By December 2021, we will have availability of 216 crores. So now that brings us to what are the concerns of the Supreme Court. This is not adversarial litigation. The Supreme Court also wants the good of the citizens and the government wants the same. Supreme Court has made certain remarks. A reply has to be filed by the central government, which will be done. But if you say that there can't be any difference of pricing, let me say it very clear that Article 14, equality before law, is not violated if there is an intelligible differential for a purpose that you wish to achieve. And this will be placed before the Supreme Court. Second point is, can the central government be blamed for a
Gaurav
policy?
Bhatia,
Can I just complete my point?
I am not saying that there should be different. No, I am not at all saying that there should be not different prices. There should be. Right. People who can afford to pay should pay, and people who cannot should be given free. But you can't have a difference of pricing wherein the undeserving get it and the deserving don't get it, because
now,
that becomes inequitable, and that is a problem.
Sure,
yes.
I will respond to that. We are very conscious of what you've said, and let me assure every viewer, every citizen who's watching me, that every citizen of India will be vaccinated, and if he can't afford or she can't afford, it becomes the responsibility of the government, be it the central government or the state government. The 50% procurement of vaccines by the central government, which will be provided to the state governments free of cost, will continue. And the state governments also have a budget. They can come forward. Rather, in the affidavit given before the Supreme Court, the state governments have also said that they would be providing free vaccines, which is 25% of the quota. But my question is only this, and then I will, end my point. Can I just raise a question, and then I'll end my point? My question is, now there are leaders like Rahul Gandhi, Mamata Banerjee, Arvind Kejriwal. They are saying, please do not decentralize. I have a letter as an example of 8th of April of Rahul Gandhi, where he said, please do decentralize. So, the central government will definitely change the policy if required in the interest of the people. But what was the opposition doing? Demanding decentralization when it was done to the tune of 25%, then again saying, please do not decentralize. I think that does not augur very well for a responsibly elected state government.
Well, Riju Datta, do you take that point? And I want to ask you, you might be celebrating that this is a case where the centre has got, a bit of a stick from the Supreme Court. But the fact is that state governments have left a lot to be desired as far as transparency in the vaccination policy is concerned. We don't know what you're doing. We don't even know how many people have been vaccinated. We don't know how many centers have been set up. We don't know what your procurement is. We don't know why middlemen have come into the picture. We don't even know whether you're giving them free or not, because that's what you say, but that is not something that we know for sure in terms of the pricing. And therefore, the Supreme Court has asked for the for the states as well to file in affidavits to give their status, which can be transparent for the citizens of India.
Navika ji, first of all, what vaccines we are getting from
center, it is in black and white. What vaccine, the number of vaccines that has been administered is in the COVID dashboard. Now, whatever else is, we will submit the report. There is nothing more to it. Whatever we are getting, we are giving it to our people. And the private hospitals who are procuring vaccines at their own cost, on their own. Different data altogether.
Because us as a state, we have failed to get the manufacturers to supply to us, so we are getting it from the center. So center already has the record of it. But the pertinent question, ma'am, here is the BJP still patting their back by giving figures like 20 crores have been vaccinated. They should they should accept the fact 22. Okay, but did you not know that 280 crore vaccines you needed? तब तो नेताजी यहाँ पर कैंपेन कर रहे थे. So the bottom line is when the supreme 2 doses ना 140 crore हुआ. अरे बात तो सुन लो. आपको तो विपक्ष का बात सुनना नहीं है ना.
अरे ममता बनर्जी ने फरवरी में कहा था डिसेंट्रलाइज कर दो. आपको
Gaurav Bhatia, I did not come into when you were speaking your legal jargon. I did not come in.
Please go ahead, but don't give wrong facts.
Hear me out. No, I'm giving you the right facts. You knew how many vaccines the country needed. At that time, you didn't place an advance order like the other countries because Netaji was campaigning. Now, Supreme Court had to intervene in the executive function of the union government, and that is a shame in itself. Now, I will only remind you this, Mr. Bhatia. I have heard your legal jargon that this is the Republic of India, not United States of India. And vaccine is not a luxury. It's a democratic right of every citizen, which the union government should provide. In 96, 97, all the children... No, 1 second, let me finish. In 96, 97, the entire country, the children of this entire country got vaccinated without a COVID app, without people's pictures on the vaccine certificates. What happened then? What happened then? Why can't we do it now? How many people in rural India has access to the COVID app? You have no roadmap. You have forgotten the digital divide.
That's the digital divide. The digital divide is also a problem. The digital divide is also a problem. I'll come to you, Gaurav. There are questions that will come from other panelists as well. So maybe you can answer them together. Tehseen Poonawalla. Tehseen Poonawalla, I want to ask you, to blame the centre is the easiest thing that you can do. But the fact that Mr. Naveen Patnaik has come out and said is the fact that I think states also need to see and understand, wake up and smell the coffee. India is sick of the blame game between political parties and between the state governments and the centre. What they need is healthcare, whoever is responsible for it, and for you to sit down, sort out your problems. You want it decentralized one day you want it centralized, the other day you want it, for open for all. Then you say, open for all क्यों कर दिया भाई, इतने तो वैक्सीन नहीं है. आपको पता नहीं है कि देश की कितनी पॉपुलेशन है और कितनी अवेलेबिलिटी है?
Yes, I went to court for saying it should be open for all on that particular day. And the petition that I shared with Harish Nair and Prashant from your team very clearly said everything that the Supreme Court said. I've been repeating it on your show. And only to have been told by the BJP that this is not true. Now the Supreme Court's repeated it verbatim. I have just 3 points to make. Every single major democracy in the world, and Suhail will bear with me, pre-ordered their vaccines in August 2020 except India. Who is to be blamed for that? Second, as Riju rightly said, the population of India in round figure 140 crores, so you require 280 crore doses. Why was that not estimated and made available for our citizens? Number 3, I have myself been speaking to various health ministers who are trying to procure the vaccines, not just from those that are available right now, but companies that want to come to India, and every single company comes back, and this is on record on email says, look, we cannot give the states the vaccines until the centre doesn't decide whether you should get it or no. And this is on email. So ultimately,
but why don't you answer? Why don't you answer the question? Why don't you answer the question on how many states are giving it free? Why don't you answer the question on Rajasthan? Why is there wastage of vaccines? Why don't you answer the question? Why don't you answer the question? 1 minute. You don't have all night now to give gyan to the country, but Tehseen Poonawalla, you have a great amount of gyan for the centre. You have a great amount of gyan for the centre, but looking within is a big problem, Shehzad Poonawalla. अपने से देखेंगे नहीं कि खुद ने क्या गलतियां की है. दूसरों की गलतियां गिनाने में नंबर 1 Rahul Gandhi and company, which includes Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla. Shehzad Poonawalla.
Navika, since I'm waiting to speak after 52 minutes, can I speak for 52 seconds? Thank you very much. Navika, while we do blame the centre and we ask questions of the centre, there is a beautiful word in Hindi called perspective. So let me just give the viewers a perspective in 20 seconds. India, a country which has 30 times less size of GDP per capita than United States, is only third after United States and China to have administered the maximum number of doses. By the way, the number of doses administered by India, 22 crores almost, is actually more than the number of doses administered by UK, Germany, France, Canada, Italy, all put together, which have 60 times the GDP per capita of India. By the way, the number of people fully vaccinated in India is also more than UK, Germany and France. So that is also something that we should understand in politics. India is obviously facing a crisis. We needed 200 crore vaccines. We will get it by December. By the end of January, by the end of June, we will have 1 crore vaccines per day being administered, or by the middle of July, we'll have 1 crore vaccines per day. Now, I want to ask Tessie Punawala one question, apart from the fact that what is his kind of mediating between states?
Well, Ashutosh, I want to ask you, I'm running out of time. Ashutosh, I want to ask you, biggest mistake was it to allow the centre to move its foot from the accelerator as far as procurement is concerned? That's when the confusion really began.
Navika, I think 2 months back when I said on many TV channels that this government has no vaccine policy, I was mocked and ridiculed and humiliated and insulted. All kinds of things were said. And I'll just read what the Supreme Court has said yesterday. Supreme Court said, you smell the coffee and see what is happening across the country and change your policy. It cannot be day-to-day and ad hoc response to as. And when problem occurs, absent guidelines and absent policy, you will have ad hoc decisions. There has to be a clear-cut policy of decisions, making a vision for the present and for the future, which is perhaps lacking today. So this government never had a vaccine policy. The government has asked the government has been asked.
Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, the anticipation and the question of vaccinating India. It's very well that we vaccinated more people than United States and the UK governments have. Fair point, but they're dealing with their circumstances. They have their population. We have ours. The question is, can we afford to leave this entire process right in the middle and leave states and private hospitals completely to their own designs? Well, we've been saying one nation, one tender, but today we put out a campaign which says one nation, one mission of Vaccinate India. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you with just this picture from Jammu and Kashmir of a 124-year-old woman who got her vaccination today, because that is the mission for India, and we all need to vaccinate India at the earliest. Thank you very much for joining me on